Hey guys, what's going on? Anybody that's followed this channel knows I play Strats a lot. And predominantly they're pretty much Mexican made, some Squires, but for what it's worth, they're essentially parts casters. I buy bodies that are in a color that I like. I buy a Fender roasted maple neck because I prefer those, or some of them just have regular maple necks, but very few of my Stratocasters are stock. The 75th anniversary being one of them, and now I bought a American Professional II. I originally wanted one in Sienna Sunburst, but nobody has them. But this Mercury silver one appealed to me, and Sweetwater had one. It was a demo model for about $200 or so less than retail price. So I picked it up. It was the HSS model, and in all reality it was $200 off because there was like some play scratches on the pick guard from people playing it at the store. The body is immaculate. There's no like surface scratches or anything like that. None that I can see. But I am getting older, so who knows. But yeah, it showed up, and I opened it up, and it's a Strat. You know, it's got some nice specs. Don't get me wrong. We have typical Stratocaster specs. It's a alder body with a gloss polyurethane finish. I got the Mercury. There's a ton of colors available. There's the Dark Knight. Some kind of Miami blue. There's 3-color sunburst, which I do not like sunburst Strats. I don't know why. There's Sienna Sunburst. There's roasted pine. Mystic surf green, which I do like the Mystic surf green, and Olympic white. And they come with either rosewood or maple fretboards on top of a maple neck with a deep C profile. It's a bolt-on neck, of course. 9.5-inch fretboard radius. White dot inlays if you got the rosewood. Black dots if you get a maple one. 22 narrow tall frets. 25.5-inch scale length. 1.685-inch nut width. And it is a bone nut, which is a nice upgrade. 2-point synchronized tremolo with a cold rolled steel block, and Fender die-cast tuners. For this particular model, you get Fender VMod 2 single coils in the neck and middle positions, and you get a Fender VMod 2 double tap humbucker in the bridge. One master volume, 2 tone controls, one of which is a push-push coil split for the bridge pickup if you get the humbucker. And of course a 5-way blade pickup switch. Comes with a really nice hard shell case. And this is a tough guitar to review because it's a Strat through and through. It pretty much has everything that you come to know from a Stratocaster. Some nice modern features are the contoured neck heel. The rolled fingerboard edges make for a comfortable playing experience. But with the introduction of the Player Plus series, kind of disappointed that this comes with the regular Fender locking, or the regular Fender tuners and not Fender locking tuners, because I'm lazy when it comes to string changes, and I'd rather be able to just pop the string in there, lock it down, and tune it up. But for the price that this guitar is, I feel like locking tuners should be standard on this. And this is the problem I have with a lot of American-made guitars. You're paying a lot of money for something that gets killed spec-wise by import Schecters and import LTD guitars. You can buy a Schecter Sun Valley Shredder with better specs. You can buy the LTD SN1000 with better specs, and they're roughly anywhere from $500 to $1,000 cheaper than this guitar. Yes, you get the prestige of having a made in America, or well, made in California Fender Stratocaster, but is that worth the premium? I know there is a pedigree that is involved with having American-made guitars. I know there are people that will only play American-made guitars. I don't care where the guitar comes from. Really, all I care about is whether it's a good instrument or not. This is a good instrument. There's, even for a demo model, this thing was in awesome shape. There's nothing I could really point out that was wrong with it. The nut slots might have been a tad wide, because when I changed the strings to the strings that I used for the setup on this guitar, they fit in there quite nicely. Now granted, I went from 9 to 42s to 10 to 52, skinny top, heavy bottom, Ernie ball set, but I didn't have to file the nut or do anything. They just kind of slid right in and everything was golden. I tuned this to open C, which was just kind of what I went with for this guitar, and it sounds really good. I was impressed. I wanted something with, my intent with this guitar was to buy a guitar that I wasn't going to mod. So that's the one thing I will say is I bought this with the intention on leaving it as it is. And I was really impressed with the V-Mod pickups. I kind of knew what to expect from the single coils, but the humbucker really shocked me. I found that in the song that I used it for, it really sounded good if I used the humbucker for the left and right guitar tracks, and then for third guitar tracks and lead lines, I split the humbucker, and it makes it stand out in the mix a little bit more, but it still retains some degree of thickness. It doesn't thin out like a single coil typically does. One thing that I've noticed on reviews for this particular guitar that doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think needs to get talked about a lot more, is the string tree, because this thing is awesome. It's not a roller tree, and it's not a Graphtec string tree or anything like that. It's like a, I don't know how they make it, if they form it or if they EDM it out of a block or something, but it has a rounded bottom, and there's no friction there whatsoever for that string to hang up on. And for the, I'm sure the manufacturing cost for it isn't too much. I've seen them around on Reverb and eBay for like $8 to $10. I would gladly pay an extra $8 to $10 for any Fender guitar with this string tree on it instead of that crap that they put on them normally, because this thing is awesome. It just, I didn't have to lubricate it with the graphite stuff that I use. I didn't have to do anything. That string just B and the E strings just glide right across it. The tuners are staggered, which is nice, which kind of removes the need for more than one string tree, and you could probably even get away with not having a string tree at all. But again, I still would have preferred locking tuners. And I mean, yeah, it's a cheap upgrade, roughly $50 or so, but like I said, at this price point of this particular model retails for $1,549 US. You should have locking tuners on there. My LTDs that I bought are less than this and had locking tuners on it. My Schecter was less than this and has locking tuners on it. The only guitar that costs roughly as much as this guitar that doesn't come with locking tuners would be the LTD KH White Zombie guitar, but it has a Floyd Rose and a locking nut, so whatever. And maybe I sound like I'm sticking to that locking tuners thing, but I feel like for the prices, some of these things should just be standard. Especially, like I said, for $1,000, the Player Plus series guitars that are the HSS, or I think they're $1,050. The HSS Player Plus guitars have locking tuners, and then for $1,000, the single coil Player Plus guitars have locking tuners. So I mean, why does something that is a more premium product not have a more premium feature? Like I said, maybe I'm sticking on that point more than I should, but it bugs me. The problem I have with this guitar is, for somebody like me, I don't know if there's a lot of inherent value here. The most appealing thing about the American Professional series for me is the colors. I really like the Dark Knight. I really like the Mystic Surf Green. And if you saw my 5 guitars I went before I die, the Sienna Sunburst is right up my alley. But I think at this point, rather than spend another $1,500 for one of these, I would more than likely go down the route of getting a body off of the Stratosphere when it shows up, and then buying the American Professional neck, or maybe even just a Fender neck that suits my needs in general, like a roasted maple neck or something. I'm not that hung up on it having to be original or anything like that. So I mean, this is a weird guitar for me to review from a because I'm looking at it from two minds. From someone who would just buy a guitar to play, this thing's awesome, if a little expensive. From someone that generally tinkers with their guitars to make them more their own, this is a big buy-in. I would say, no matter what, if you're interested in the American Professional guitars, shop around used, or consider B-stock or demo models, because if you can save a few $100, why not? Because that's just the nature of it. And as the prices keep going up, and I'm sure we're not at the end of the price increases with the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if a year or two from now, if these end up being $2,000 guitars. So, yeah. We'll see what happens there. But like I said, I mean, it's a great guitar. The fretwork was immaculate. The rolled fingerboard edges feel incredible. Super comfortable to play. And, there's nothing... I didn't really have to do anything to it other than, put the strings on it that I wanted to put on it and then intonate it. Really, the worst thing I can say about this guitar is it doesn't have locking tuners. Other than that, I mean, this thing checks all the boxes that a Stratocaster should check off, and you're not paying American Ultra prices or Ultra Lux prices. These are perfectly fine guitars. I would gig with this. I mean, but it's not leaps and bounds better than some of the Made in Mexico stuff that I bought, but it does have some minor things that just kind of set it over the edge that make it a better instrument. The bone nut, the string tree, and the overall fit and finish is slightly better. Future Ghost Dragon here. One thing I forgot to mention is the 9.5-inch fretboard radius doesn't really bother me. I'm used to it, but I think it might have done them a lot better to maybe have a 12-inch radius, because then you further bridge the gap between the American Ultra and the American Performer. The American Performers have a 9.5-inch radius and are the line below this guitar. And the American Ultra has a compound radius. I think it might be 12 to 14. I'm not 100% sure what the compound radius is on the American Ultras. But if they would have went with a 12-inch radius on the fretboard for the American Performers, again, like I said, that would have maybe bridged that gap a little bit better. But it's not a deal breaker if you're used to the... It doesn't... Most people probably can't tell the difference between 9.5 and 10, so I mean, it feels like you're playing in a 10-inch radius. And notes don't fret out when you bend them or anything like that. So I mean, it's typical of a Strat, but that's just one more minor little nitpick, I guess you could say. But it doesn't, you know, the fretboard radius doesn't take away from the feel or how the guitar plays, unless, you know, you're a stickler for a specific fretboard radius and you don't like a 9.5-inch radius. Then obviously this isn't the S-style guitar for you, and you're probably better off with an LTD or a Schecter or something along those lines, or a Charvel. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Anyways, guys, so yeah, that's the Fender American Professional II that I bought, and like I said, I like it, but there's some minor things I wish Fender would change on it. But you know, some of these companies, the thing with some of these companies like Fender and Gibson is they do have their traditional stances on some things, and some of those things just won't change. So we'll see. But any of you guys have these? What do you think? Do you just love it as it is? Is there things you wish they would change? Is there something you've changed on it? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll go from there. But like always, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch, and if you could do all that fun stuff like the rate, comment, and subscribe, helps me out, helps you out, because then you get other guitar videos in your feed, and everybody wins all the way around. Again, like I said, thank you for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you in the next one.